Dumelang, kaofela. Welcome to another episode of GMTV. I'm your host, your friendly Gogo, Gogo Moyo. Today we're going to be talking about one conversation that I think everybody, every single person under the sun can resonate with. And that's conversation between self and self. If you're struggling with any of these conversations, I guess then you're tuned into the right place, because I'm going to help you to figure out what's going on between your heart and your mind, as well as your dreams and your destiny. So stay tuned. So I've always had this complex, right? Because I became a healer so early. At the back of my mind, deep down in my heart, it always felt like I never got a chance. I never got a chance to play, figure out, make mistakes. You know, I never got a chance to really get to discover and for the longest time, that has always been embedded in my heart. As much as I've been able to have negotiations with my ancestors as to like, so I've been in Dumelang for a full year, may I please go back to school? Was one of the first things I negotiated, because it took me right out of university. So when they did agree, and I managed to do 2 years of systems development, as well as, what is the other one I did? And software testing. So eventually I started my own career under my own name. And that was rather liberating, because I didn't have to get there and say, and people feel the need to be asking me about their dreams or whatever the case is, or even stigmatize me towards a certain collective of people. So for the longest time, I've always had this struggle, man, you know. For instance, within my family dynamic, I'm the eldest daughter, but I'm the middle child of 3. So I've got a younger brother, and an older brother and a younger sister. And the 2 of them have always, I guess, decided their families rather earlier, much earlier than me. For instance, my nieces and nephews are 7 and 8, you know, and my kids are only 2 and 3. In comparison, you know, and with that, they got into their marriages sooner and all those things, and not even from a place of jealousy, but from a place of, I've given up so much of my time and dedicated so much of my time towards one of my biggest dreams was always to become a mother, you know, so you can imagine how fulfilled I feel right now. But during those times, even holidays like Mother's Day and all those kind of things, or just holidays where family would gather, would be particularly difficult for me, because it wouldn't connect with me, because I'm surrounded by all this beauty, this love, and this family time, and I couldn't feel like I'm contributing towards it, besides just being a generous aunt, or an aunt who the kids could get away with a lot of things because I was just more lax than their parents. You know, so it's just that conversation, it just kept on bugging me, to a point where even in the work that I did, I just ended up having some kind of resentment towards the brand of Moyo and what she represented and what she wanted to do, because I got into creating YouTube videos without me knowing what it meant. I just picked up my iPhone and that was it. And it created this whole new world, and literally my life was open up to possibilities that I never knew existed. So in its own right, it's got so much merit, so much presence, so much education, and such a story behind it. But as an individual, I felt like I fell under the umbrella. You know, when your oldest sibling is like cooler, more famous at school or whatever, and then you show up maybe a few years later in the same school, and then they're like, you're so and so's brother, as if you've lost your name. You know what I mean? So that's how it felt like. It felt like I couldn't be associated with anything else besides the brand. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate, because we chase our careers for so often, for so long, and we literally put our backs into it, make literal sacrifices for us to reach the pinnacle and the great heights that we'd like to reach, for the sake of comfortability, to create beautiful family setups, really dictate our own stories towards our life. So I know a lot of us also struggle with the fact that because we've chased our careers for so long, we've disappeared. So I am the president's PA, or the right-hand person of someone that's really famous, or I'm the really famous person, or I'm a really important part of the business where I work. Outside of that, who are you? Outside of that, what do you enjoy? And that's why I guess so many people, when we go to parties, it's a known joke that there'll be that guy who's always, whenever they're drunk, they offer and say, almost like that's just about all that they can offer. It's always work-related things. Outside of that, they on their own don't feel fulfilled enough to speak on themselves, about themselves. So that's generally in jest what the conversation is about today. And I'd like to really unpack what the different challenges and the types of scenarios in which there's so much conflict between self that it ends up seeming as if you've split yourself into two, but you're struggling to merge this conversation, struggling to merge this personality so that you can really thrive at your peak. So I'm sure you guys now understand that I'm talking about the internal struggle and competition with self. And I'd just like to read a definition of a phrase, of a term called imposter syndrome. And here it says, approximately 70% of people at some point in their life will experience imposter syndrome, where they don't believe that they deserve their success and are worried about being found out as a fraud. So that's quite crazy, that's quite crazy, because I remember even in the beginning of my career as isangoma, we are twasa, back fundisa, you're put under these challenges, tests, you pass your way through them, in a way that's acceptable to Gogo to actually say, I can send you out there in the world. But the scenario is different when now you're in your own camp, EzaseNdumbeni, your guide is not there, who you'd always nudge or give a certain look whenever you're confused, and that kind of catch you in the air, would say, assist, and EzaseNdumbeni, these people are coming to you, and you all of a sudden have this imposter syndrome, because you're like, do these people know that I don't know what I'm doing? Do these people know that I just don't know what I'm doing, not even to just discredit yourself, but the confidence at the time is lacking, the self-doubt is creeping in, just so much of everything you've been taught literally escapes out the window, like you've never learned anything, and you're like, oh hell no, this is not the great time to have a brain freeze. I need everything that my Baba has taught me to download as quickly as possible. But if you don't go through those experiences, then you don't know how to work in tough situations or scenarios. You don't know how to work in a fast-paced environment. You really don't know how to work on a whim, right? So that's essentially what imposter syndrome is. We get into, we get rather given such amazing opportunities, and we know we've been taught how to do certain things, or we've been acclimatized to it, etc. For instance, I know a friend of mine texted me like, hey Gogo, I saw your intro in your previous video, like a grand, it almost seems like there's a bit of self-doubt. And I'm like, naturally to myself, I'm like, there would be. I've got 3 years offline. I don't remember in which part of myself I used to pull that energy to be like, yo, Dumelang, kaofela, welcome to another episode of Gogo Moyo Speaks. You know what I mean? And I remembered that, firstly, I had a team who we'd psych each other up, we'd play some music, do some funny moves, funny dances. So by the time I'd begin, my heart rate is already pumping and I'm ready to go. And now the team's not here, and it's myself and my camera and you. So I'm unaware at the time that my energy is not where it needs to be. So, and my self-doubt creeps in because I'm like, hang on, man. Am I even making sense? Am I saying the right things? How am I going to be received after being gone for so long? So it happens to just about anyone in any scenario. And yes, don't worry, Gogo's doing just fine. But you have to psych yourself up into shaking off some of the things that make you feel uncomfortable. You could be struggling with bad habits. You could be struggling to forgive yourself for past mistakes. You could be struggling with feeling like you have resentment issues over always taking care of other people and never putting yourself on the list anywhere, not even at the end. You're just not there. And inside of your heart is built up tension. In your body is tension. In your heart is heartache. You feel like you've been robbed. And most importantly, by yourself. And that's why sometimes it seems as if you don't know who you are. Because you want to be chop and changey. Because you really want to still honor the essence of who you are as an individual. Despite being the eldest daughter or the first son or, the namesake of someone who was really important, you're still trying to balance these two personalities or these two roles that make up you. And that in itself is so overwhelming. And I'm encouraging you today. I'm encouraging you that sometimes you just got to throw caution to the wind, fam. This year I was so intentional. I'm like, fam, I've just had 2 kids. It's either I'm going to let this postpartum depression rule me, or I'm going to be the girl I know myself to be, who is go, not even just to distract myself, but to release the energy. Any body that's sitting still is always going to remain in the stiffness, the heartache, the difficulty, and that pain. So if you move, that's why exercise is so encouraged. If you move, you allow yourself to explore, expand, flow. And as you flow, you invite other energy to come in and inspire you. So what did I do? I started a business, a personalization business. I also started a healthcare product listing where I make body scrubs, where I make diwasho, I make candles. All of these are self-taught. I made them in my mom's kitchen, in between these kids falling asleep and my nanny giving me a chance to recover and see to my own needs. But I did, I made these things. And because I've always been such an exploratory person, and again, I said I humor myself. So an idea pops into my mind, trust, best believe we're going with it. But otherwise, pambili we go. And I put so much money, any money that I could gather, I put it into investing in myself. Hence today I have a new studio that I'm recording from. But it's not a production studio for videos. It's a studio for arts and crafts. If I was to pan the room, it's full of scissors, glue guns, cutting boards. It's so different to what I usually surround myself with. But sometimes when you realize that you have to change your environment to speak to a different level of yourself, then sometimes that's all you need to take. So I hope this encourages you to not block out your thoughts, that you're not being extra, you're not doing too much. And it's okay to honor yourself and give yourself that time. Like, you know what, fam? I've been taking care of you guys for a very long time. I've let you be more important. And right now, because things have stabilized to a certain level that we're all good, I'd like to look inwardly and give myself some time, pay myself some attention and compliments, and really invest into who I am. Because eventually, even the positive things I want to do for you are becoming negative, because I'm not releasing them from a place where I also feel seen. So this is your reminder. This is your go ahead. This is your get to it, mate, reminder. Let's go. So now I'd like to put a little spanner in the works. You may or may not like me after this presentation. Okay. So as I'm having this conversation between Gogo Moyo versus Refilwe, hence my introduction, I had to go through all the different tags that are associated with me because they all exist and they all need to be seen. Firstly, by myself before anyone else. And in this conversation, Refilwe has had experiences in her life that don't particularly mean that she has lived, that she has healed through. And she's worked through her emotions or found the right support to help her see those periods through in terms of dealing with her traumas. Now imagine this kid goes and becomes a healer, right? You become a healer. And depending on the type of kaofela you have, that person sets the tone. They set the tone towards your healing. Please don't get me wrong. It's not an scapegoat that I'm giving you. It's an enlightenment. They set a tone depending on whether they are healed or unhealed. Because unhealed people like misery to be shared. They like to be abusive and overstep boundaries because they have not healed. They don't even recognize that action as immoral or wrong or has no integrity. So I'm trying to shed a light here so that you guys can understand that healing is needed and deserved by everyone, but you also have to want it for yourself. Because if I am ukobela wako and I am toxic AF and I refuse to get help, I refuse to introspect and work on my vices and my negativity, every child that will go under me and be taught under me will be traumatized to a certain level that I now inflict a new level of pain towards them. And that's why there's a whole conversation around abokobela, right? There's that. We don't dispute. But there's also, in a different scenario, a healed kaofela who has done all the work they need to. In their own training, they've seen their worst version and then since worked on it. They are now a good source of well to impart information and knowledge onto new people. But then there's you, Uskumbuzo, who comes from home, who's been watching videos and all those things from the net, from all these different people who are healers under the tag healers. Whether they're initiated or not, whether they finished or not, whether they had respect of the homes and the teachers that initiated them in the first place or not, because you'll never know, right? You only see what we present to you. I will show you only what I want you to see. If I have a bad day, I won't show you. I'll wrap my hair and I'll look like a goddess. I'll make up a scenario to suit me. So now you, Skumbuza, you leave your home and you come ephehlweni, and because you are still trauma filled, you are still full of hate, negativity, you want to hurt everything in your power just so that the rest of the world can feel how broken you are inside. And that's not a bad thing, right? Because why would you fix yourself before you go to get into ipehlo or embark on your spiritual journey? I mean, some of the reasons why you need to do that, ukuthi kumele uphole. Hence umsebenzi wabantu abadala awufani at the end of intwaso for everyone. Omunye uyathwasa ubeka izinto zakhe, uvula indumbu ubeka izinto zakhe phansi, akasasebenzisi, and lokho kwanele for idlozi. Omunye uzofukuza lo kahlahluba ayenzani, omunye uzabe igobela, omunye uzabe kuyigobela bugobela. Akuthwani, our levels are so different. And that's why you have to recognize what kind of ancestors you walk with so that you can be true and honest to your own life's purpose and not want to be a reflection of ukobela wako. or your sibling. So you coming ephehlweni in that state of confusion and anger and hate, you come into an environment that's peaceful. Gobela has found systems that work. Everyone knows what to do. They feel enabled. They feel empowered. They don't feel dependent. They feel like they're actually growing into themselves. But because as toxic as you are, you want to come pollute the environments that you're in. Because, I mean, maskoten sonke. Or you want to take the mindset of, I used to watch videos on YouTube and TikTok, and you want to bring the same culture into iphehlo. And then now, when you're being taught a certain practice, rule, function, ufuna ukuyiphikisa ukuthi akusile into engiyibona TikTok. Sithando sami ngcono uhambe uthwasa ku TikTok. Do you understand what I mean? And even in itself, that's a level of an internal fight, an internal competition, an internal conflict. That's against still you versus you. The you that's going to go ephehlweni to get initiated, be taught amazing, phenomenal lessons on humanity, spirituality, and culture. And you who's still unhealed. And it's still the same body that has to go through the same process. So even that on its own, people don't recognize as I'm fighting myself. It's self-sabotage. And they feel like they're fraudsters and they don't deserve to be here. Or why does it look a certain way? So sometimes you may find even the most toxic of people wear amabai and wear beads. Because even in your own healing, you left it to someone else, your mentor, to heal every part of you, fix every part of you, as if you have no work to do for yourself. I can only do so much. I can set up environments for you. I can push you to the edge so that you can really crack, and in your favor and not to break you. But after everything is said and done, and you do learn how to be a healer and you go into your space, the version that you're going to insist on working on is what the community around you is going to receive. That's something that needs to be expressed and echoed for many to hear, because people like to point fingers and say anything under the sun. And that's why Itwasa versus Gobela conversation will always never balance out, because somehow, because we Itwasa, you're vulnerable, so Gobela kusile in really? No, not always. For the most parts, Amatwasa are the ones that are most toxic because of their refusing to heal. They come to iphehlo or work under the guise of being a healer while operating from their lowest vibration, and somehow they want to achieve the highest connection. That sounds like a misalignment to me, if you ask. So, my good people, with everything said and done, this video is strictly and mostly about introspection and honest conversations with self, and for us to stop putting excuses and blaming other people, but really see how much we contribute to situations because of how unhealed we are. And healing is non-linear. There's this picture or meme that circulates the internet of how I think healing is. And they put this Zen pic, turbans, incense blowing in the background, like it's chi. And then the next picture they show of how healing really is. And someone is sitting there bawling their eyes out with snot coming down their face, hairs looking left, right, and center. You barely bath for 2 days. You don't feel worthy. The list is endless. To show that healing does not have to look nice. But if you're dedicated towards yourself, you'll put in the work so that it's easier, more tolerable. And that's by using systems. If you know running a bath or standing under a cold shower calms you, that's part of your systems. If you know that speaking to your mentor helps you realign your thoughts, that's part of the systems. If it means socializing less and being around big crowds helps you to center yourself more, then that's part of your systems. So for you to be successful in life, I want to encourage you that systems mean that you make sure that you start creating habit. Because a system is designed to play out in a certain way, solve for certain problems, be in routine, create a habit for you. And that's ultimately how one becomes successful. Part of what I did for my mental psyche was to drop the previous video. Whether I was ready or not, whether I felt comfortable enough that I knew how to edit, because everything now is a one-man show. So a lot has changed, right? Whether I knew that I was comfortable enough or not, I'm like, I know certain basics. And that's enough for me. And I've got conversation and I've got stories. And I'm not going to let these stories choke me and block my throat chakra. I would rather get a bad comment here and there and say, or hey, you seem like you have self-doubt. I had, and I will from time to time. But I'm more determined than my current situation. So part of my system is to do things whether I'm ready or not. I'll perfect it on the go, otherwise I won't start at all. I know myself to be a perfectionist. And if I know what my Achilles heels are, then I know how to do better. So let this be an encouragement for you, that we're no longer putting excuses at the forefront. Nothing is perfect. We're going through really terrible times. We have been through immense trauma as people, in our own individual stories, and even as a country. So no one is oblivious to the struggle and the level of struggle and strain that you're under. We're just choosing, to put on a lip gloss, tie our turbans, show up as the queens that we are, and tell our stories. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of EzaseNdumbeni, and see you next time.